You just got an internship in some IT company and you have been asked to build a user registration system which will store the user information with some basic functionality like change or delete a specific user. You thought it's easy. I will just create a dictionary which will store the user information. But then suddenly a new user came for registration. And then you thought, should I create a new dictionary for every user? Well, it's not a good idea, right? Even if you create a separate dictionary for each user, then what if you have to change some sort of information of specific user? For such purpose, we have concept of classes and object. In this video, we will see how we can create classes and its objects in detail, so stay tuned till the end. First, we are going to define a person class. Inside the person class, the first method we write is init method, which means initialization, or it is also known as constructor method. Notice that there is a double underscore sign before and after init. This method is called automatically when we create an instance or object of that class. This init method takes first argument as self keyword, which is reference to the new object of this class. Then we write the required parameters, which we have to pass when we create the new instance of this class. Then to store the parameter value, we create the class attribute with the self keyword followed by the variable name of your choice, then assign the value to it. We are done with defining our first class. To create an object of this class, we write the class name followed by the parenthesis. If you run this, you will get an error, because when we create an instance of this class, then it calls the init method, and our init method requires the person name as argument. But this time we will pass the name of that person. And as I told you before that the person name variable is attribute of the person class. So in order to see the value of this attribute, we write the object we created followed by a dot and the class variable name. Notice that we haven't used any parenthesis here because it's an attribute, not a method. Now we will create a circle class. This circle class will take radius as input whenever we create an instance. Then we will define our class method. First is the area method in order to return the area of that circle. Then circumference method to return the circumference of that circle, and the last one will be the set radius method to change the value of radius if required. Our circle class is ready to use. This time we will create two instances of our circle class. First one with radius 10 and second one with radius 20. Now we will call the area method on both C1 and C2 instance. Now let's look at the radius of C1 and C2. Notice that C1 and C2 both are the instance of same class, but it can hold the values of multiple instances separately. This is the main advantage of object-oriented programming. To get more clear idea about classes and object, we will see one more example. This time we will create a student class with some attribute like full name, email address, phone number and the course opted by that student. Then we will store the value in different variable. Now we will define two methods to update the email and the phone number of students if required. Let's create an instance of the student class with the required parameters. Let's check the email address of our S1 instance. Now let's update the email address by calling update email method with new email as input. And now let's check the email. It will give you the updated email address. A class can also inherit the attribute and the method of other classes. For example, we will create a class animal, and inside our init method we will simply print that animal class is created whenever we create the new instance of that class. Then we will write two methods. Whoami will print animal and eat method will print that animal started eating. Now let's create a lion class by inheriting the properties of animal class. We can inherit the properties of class by just passing the name of that class inside parenthesis. In this class we will only define our init method, which will print lion object created when we create the object of that class. Now let's create the instance of our lion class. It works fine. Notice that we haven't defined whoami and eat method in lion class, but since lion class is inheriting the properties of animal class, we can still call all those methods with instance of lion class. But if you want to be more specific and want this method to work bit different according to class, then you can redefine those methods in inherited class. Now if we create the instance of our lion class and call these methods, then it will work in the same way as you expect them to. Now we will discuss about special methods known as double underscore method. To see an example, I will create a list of some integer. And you know that to check the length of list object we use len function. Now let's create a simple class which will simply print that the class is created when we instantiate it. Let's create the instance of this class. Now let's call the inbuilt len function on our user defined object. You got an error saying object of type simple has no length. This is because len is inbuilt method of Python and it can only work for inbuilt objects of Python like list, tuples, etc. But what if we want these inbuilt method to work for user defined objects? This is where double underscore methods comes into play. To show an example, let's create a book class which will take title, author name and number of pages as input when we create a new instance of that class. And whenever someone call the len function on any instance of this book class, then we want to return the number of pages as output. For this we will use double underscore before and after the len keyword and then return the number of pages. Now if we create an object of book class with required parameters and then call the len function by passing that object, then it will work in the same way as len function works for inbuilt objects of Python. You can see the result. This time we haven't got any error. In this way, by using double underscore method, we can make almost any inbuilt method to work for user defined object. By all these examples, I hope that you got the concepts of classes and objects. From next video we'll start with NumPy. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then do subscribe it and hit the bell icon. And if my videos are upgrading your knowledge, then don't forget to like it.